Next question. The person is from Nigeria, if I can say. He says, as a construction and sustainable development project manager, what would be the best program for me? That is on Quebec skilled worker or federal skilled worker. I'm both from Benin Republic and Nigeria. All my study, but I studied from, let me see. All my studies have been performed in Benin Republic. I don't know.
Okay, so I would say that this person has options, but okay.
I think people need to mute themselves, right? So
can you mute?
People need to mute.
I think they're supposed to mute.
Please, Mr. Tosin, please.
Thank you.
Yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. So yeah, this person has options, but should be guided by where do you want to settle in Canada. So if you do decide that, well, I think because I have Francophone experience, Quebec is Francophone, I'm bilingual as well. Quebec is offering me, Quebec is a place where I want to get settled. Yes, I'll say go look at what the requirements are for Quebec, see how you fit into that, do the necessary exams, get your credentials assessed, and then do the Quebec immigration program. But for a person who can successfully fit into other provinces of Canada and Quebec, your options are larger. I'll just note that for a person who is bilingual and has proficiency in French and English, if you do both exams, in doing the federal skilled worker program as a project manager in that sense, you will get points in addition for English and for French. Recently, the government gave additional points that you're eligible for if you are proficient in French. So before, if French was, say, your first language or second language, the points you could get for that were sort of lower than it is today. So I think there's an additional 50 points that you can get just for that additional proficiency in French. So whether it's at the rest of Canada federal government program or the Quebec program, Quebec also places a lot of priority on people who speak French. This person is definitely a valuable candidate for Canada.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Prince Adeyanju. They said over 8 children sponsorship. Why the applicants still in the school, or applicants any way out to secure approval? Over 8 children sponsorship. Said why the applicants still in the school? Any way out to secure? Yeah.
Right. So my understanding of this is these children are already over age, but they are still going to school or doing some apprentice work. The general rule here in Canada is that where a child, the child you can sponsor, including a sponsorship application, needs to be 22 and below. So the day a person turns 22, it becomes 22 and above. So that child will no longer be eligible. So I would assume that that's what this person means by an over age children's sponsorship. While that is a general rule, there's always an exception in law. And that exception that may apply to this person is if for some reason of some medical condition, depending on that child's situation, is still dependent on the parent. So you need to show evidence that this child, even though he's more than 22, he is not financially dependent because for some medical reason, he cannot do that himself, cannot take care of himself, and I'm still providing care for that child, then that child may be able to take advantage of that exemption. So the medical records of that child and the fact that the child is still financially dependent on the parents who is sponsoring the child is important in this situation.
Okay, next question. Thank you. Next question, Ms. Bumi Alabi. Can you ask a question, please? Unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for the very enlightening talk. Just a quick question. Are there any pathways for any skilled worker age 50 and above? Because I hear a whole lot of things about age. How does that work for skilled workers who are 50 and above? Thank you.
Oh, well, age is important. And the reason being that by the time you start hitting a certain age, you become an older person in the eyes of immigration. But it is not the end of the road. There are all kinds of options. Say, for instance, you want to apply under the Express Entry Skilled Worker Program that Tosin spoke to, and you score 0 for age, you can make up some of those lost points through other criteria. So, for instance, you have a master's, you have a PhD that give you extra points. You have family members here, you get extra points for that. You can speak both French and English pretty well. It gives you extra points. You have a job offer, that gives you extra points. So there are quite a number of things that can be done that some of those criteria can give you extra points to overcome the lost points with respect to age. The other thing is it also depends on the kind of program we're looking at for skilled workers or someone who is experienced in the field. So, for instance, if I'm a creative writer and I'm 50 years old and I want to come in as a self-employed person based on the fact that I write or I'm a performer or whatever in the creative field and similar field, my age will not be a reason why I would not qualify eventually, because the point requirement for that kind of a program is drastically reduced. The other thing that, so the investor program is always an option for those who have the money, but the self-employment option is there too, where you don't need a lot of money, but you just need experience in the field if you meet that requirement. One thing that some people have also done is if they're able to apply for and obtain a study permit, even at that age, coming here will be of help because after studying in Canada for a couple of years and they get 3-year work permit, postgraduate work permit, and they're able to work for at least 1 year. Based on that, they can apply for permanent residency and should be able to make the point system based on whatever is obtainable at that time. So there are quite a number of options there, depending on individual background and history and information, and that's why it's always difficult for lawyers to just say to anyone that, oh yeah, you should be okay, because a 50-year-old Mr. A might qualify because of other reasons, why another 50-year-old Mr. B might not qualify for some other reasons. So I hope, so it's always good to get a lawyer and have yourself assessed for all the options available, and then get informed and then make a decision from that.
Okay, I just wanted to add to that, and again, forgive me if I've already mentioned that. For folks who are older, provincial nomination may provide you an alternative pathway. Most provinces now have sort of put in a system that is slightly similar to the federal government, where issues of age determines some of the points that you get. But if you have relationships, say for example, the province of Manitoba, if you have folks who live there, either a family member, a friend, those folks will support you for settling in Manitoba. And if you get that support, you may ultimately be able to break that age issue. It gives you 600 points to take back to the Federal Express Entry pool. And a person who has 600 points from provincial nomination is more likely than not to get invited at some point. Also, if you're able to secure a job in some provinces, say the Atlantic provinces, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and things like that, a person who is 50-year-old and is a skilled professional is likely bringing some valuable experience to the table. I know recent reports in the media have said the governments are looking at things like breaking down the barrier for professionals who move to Canada to get into their professions. That may also have an implication in terms of who is recruited as a foreign national. So if you have a job offer that is eligible, all those things could also help you overcome the age issue from the provincial nomination perspective. And if you get nominated ultimately, then age is not an out-and-out barrier in that sense.
Thank you, sir. Next question from, what's the name of the? Okay, I can't see the name. Just let's see. Oh, sorry. This, I have been rejected at the hearing appeal and Federal High Court. 1, am I in danger? 2, what is my next line of action? 3, my Federal High Court review was rejected in June 2021. 4, oh, I can't see this. Sorry. Oh. Number 4, I didn't qualify for pathway because I just started working as PSW in June 2021. Did you get the question, sir?
Yes, yeah, I got it, and I think I read it earlier. So yes, a person who has gone through the refugee process in terms of being to the RPD, and again, I'm not speaking to this person's specific situation. I'm speaking generally. Gone through the RPD appeal, federal court, and all of that did not succeed. At the point you made your refugee claim, you were issued with something called a departure order, which effectively becomes a deportation order 30 days after your refugee process is concluded. So 30 days after that time, you become what you say, what's the word, ready for removal. So the CBSA could decide to enforce removal at that point against that person. But in terms of the person being in danger, my answer to that is no. They're still in Canada. Canada is a safe country, so there's no danger in that sense. But I would imagine that the danger we're talking about is in terms of removal. Depending on the time enforcement proceedings start, you may be eligible for something called pre-removal risk assessment, and you don't become eligible for pre-removal risk assessment until 1 year after the last refugee proceedings that you completed which did not succeed. So if it was a federal court case 1 year after, so the hope really is maybe CBSA doesn't start processing enforcement until 1 year after you're eligible for pre-removal risk assessment, or if the last proceedings was, say, RPD or RAD 1 year after that. But importantly, depending on the person's particular situation, there is a 12-month bar in terms of seeking for permanent residence on humanitarian and compassionate grounds. Even though there is that general rule that you cannot apply for H&C within 12 months of the last process that you did, where the best interest of the child is affected. So for example, you have children who may be adversely affected by the outcome of your situation in Canada. So whether or not that child is with you here in Canada, so there are folks who have come here alone, they have children back home, children that they support, then on the best interest of those children, you may want to seek permanent residence on humanitarian and compassionate grounds. If there's no child involved, maybe you have a medical condition as well, that may give you an exemption to that 12-month bar to explore the possibility of permanent residence on humanitarian and compassionate grounds. And so for a person who may not have been eligible for the Healthcare Workers Pathway Program, or who works in the healthcare sector today, if you can explain that one of those situations that I talked about apply to you, the healthcare work that you do may serve as additional ammunition for pleading for that compassionate consideration for your permanent resident to be processed from within Canada. But ultimately, at the point in time where removal is being enforced, whether 12 months after or before, there are several legal steps that you have available to you to take in terms of seeking a deferral of the removal, going to the federal court to seek a stay of removal and things like that. Those options are outlined for you if and when the CBSA officer decides to enforce that departure order that I talked about. In addition to that, remember we talked about out of status options. One of those options, depending on your specific situation and what has happened to you in Canada. For example, some people may have been in Canada while going through that refugee process, found somebody who they fell in love with, they have lived with for 12 months as common law spouses, or they eventually got married. It may be open to you to apply for permanent residence under the sponsorship of a spouse. So several options and avenues exist. It depends on each person's specific situation. And like JB and I have mentioned before, you may want to seek specific legal advice to see, in my own situation, what can I do? But that's it in a general sense that can apply to anybody across the board.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question. My name is Aaron, a student currently not attending school due to failed fees payment. Permit currently expired. In 90 days grace period, please, what are my options to extend my stay till I pay my fees? And yeah. Can you go ahead, sir? Mm-hmm.
So
You can take that.
Okay, great. So for folk who has come to Canada on a study permit, I think one thing I should emphasize right out of the gate is that on your study permit, there's an expiry date, but your study permits can expire by operation of law, depending on what you have done during the period of your studentship. And I'll tell you what I'm talking about. The expectation on an international student is for you to be registered and be attending school full-time for the period of your study permit. So if you stay out of school for longer than 150 days without the authorization of your school, so for example, some people get leave of absence from school and things like that, your study permit may expire without you even knowing. So it's important for us to put that information out there that a student needs to be in school. If you, for some reason or the other, experience challenges, you may want to take advantage of that leave of absence period, but ensure that that period doesn't go beyond 150 days, because by the time you go back to immigration to say, I want to extend my study permit, do stuff, they look at what have you done so far, have you maintained your status, and it could serve as a reason for refusal. Now, this study permit has expired within the 90 days grace period, which is the period I mentioned earlier that a person who falls out of status has opportunity to seek restoration. Still being within that 90 days restoration period, you need to do something about seeking that restoration to restore your status as a student. What is important is that when you do that application, the officer wants to see that you can continue to pay your school fees. So, but if there are humanitarian and compassionate reasons why you have not been able to go to school, you've run into some challenges. I mean, I've heard of situations where a person's sponsor has died, parents have died, certain family difficulties have happened, or a person falls ill in such a way that they could not go to school. All those could serve as humanitarian and compassionate basis for you to seek that renewal of status to continue your academics, possibly seeking out for maybe a variation in your study permit in terms of what you can do to be able to pay your way through school. You get a study permit, you get 20 hours during school sessions, 40 hours out home. So in making a humanitarian and compassionate case, whether you want to seek PR on that basis or restore your status as a student first, all of these things are things you can outline to let the officer know why did you fall out of status, and why is this opportunity you're seeking for, whether it's study permit or permanent residence, the next best option for you.
Next person. Thank you, sir.
So I can speak to, I just wanted to add one or two things to this, because it's a very important question. And sometimes you have to put on the hat of a father, not even a lawyer. Sometimes you are lucky to have a combined heart, father, lawyer. And we see a lot of young people who were sent here by their parents to come and study. And for one issue or the other, people have this misconception that life is easy in Canada or overseas. And maybe they are only able to afford 1 year's tuition, or have a year's tuition, and they send their kids here, and you can get a work, you can get some work, you can roughen it. It's not every child that can roughen things, that work and spend. They only have 20 hours to work anyways per week, and so it can be tough. And because of some of these, we have come across quite a number of students from overseas, from Nigeria, with mental health challenges, who have broken down midway. They can't handle it. And so for any parent that is here, I would say, you know what, do your best not to set your child up for failure. If you can afford to send your child to school here, all well and good. If you cannot, I mean, don't compete with anybody. Don't just compete with anybody. Find a way to for a child to go to school back home in Nigeria or in a nearby country where you can easily afford. Then once they graduate and they work for 1 year, then they can apply to come here as permanent residents. So I just wanted to keep that in so that, but having said that, with this, for those who are here already, I will also say that they should open up, they should talk to people, talk to professionals, not just your friends who will say, oh, Baba Jody did this way, this is the way you should do it. You know, seek for an experienced professional and say, this is what I'm going through. The minute you know that you're struggling, school, there's no money to pay, like Tosin said, then find a way. What can I do? Many people don't even know that you can apply to have, while you're a student, to have a full-time work permit on humanitarian and compassionate grant. If you have those reasons, if you have some serious reasons why you're struggling with your finances and things like that, like Tosin said, somebody died, your sponsor died, or something happened. Or you want to take a break due to mental health, all those kind of stuff. So it's extremely important for everyone to know that there are help out there, there are options out there, but you just need to talk to the right people about some of these things. All right. So to the person that asked that question, seek legal opinion as soon as possible. For anyone in that kind of a situation, what you don't want to happen is the restoration period to expire. That will make things worse. Okay, so things can be done within the restoration period at this time if you talk to the right people. All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, sir. The person that asked that question should contact Top Mark K. Anthony for more information. Okay, thank you. Next question from Mr. Olumide Fatunashe. Mr. Olumide Fatunashe, can you unmute yourself, sir?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't know I mute myself. My questions, I'm sure everybody must have seen a lot of advertisements from some people in Nigeria asking public to come and register for Canada visa lottery. So many people have called me from Nigeria, from the UK, to find out. And I always tell them, as far as I know, I don't think there's anything like Canada visa lottery. I know US had it. Even at that, Nigerian slot has been exhausted. Nigeria is no more. No Nigerians can apply it anymore because all our slot has been used. I would like our assistant lawyers to please educate us. Is there anything like Canadian visa lottery? That's number one. Number two, is there any program like in Canada where you can sponsor a family member who is an adult? Because people are calling me, they said that something like that. I said, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how that works. I know if you have a child, if it's underage, you could, but if they are overage or if they are family, I don't know anything about that. So it's an opportunity to hear the views of our lawyers, so that we can know what is obtainable in Canada and what is not. Thank you.
All right, Tosin, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sorry. So the first question with respect to visa lottery, interestingly, I also got some screenshots of somebody who was seeking to confirm visa lottery thing just this week. And I'll sort of tie that to something Mr. Babala said at the beginning. It's important to know where you're getting your information from. Thankfully, the Government of Canada website is publicly available. Whether you're in Nigeria, you can access it, you can go online to read directly from the source. So I know that when you go online and do a Google search, you will see several ads from businesses, law firms, that pop up before the Canadian government's website. But be careful to look out for that Canada.ca to be the place where you're getting your direct information from. So as far as I'm aware, there is no visa lottery in that sense, where Canada does a visa lottery in that sense. The programs that are available are some of the ones that we talked about, where people, based on their experience, their qualification, their proficiency in English, get in a pool with other candidates. Canada does draws bi-weekly, depending on the program they are drawing for, whether it's provincial nomination, Canadian Experience Class, Foreign Skilled Worker, Foreign Skilled Trade. They invite those people in the pool. So it's not a lottery in the sense like a US visa lottery. So it's important that people are careful, because several people in Nigeria who do not have the authorization, whether it's immigration licensed Canadian immigration consultants or lawyers licensed in Canada, put several advertisements out. It's important to let your family members, friends, and relatives know. It's important to be careful so you do not fall victim. That's that. I think with respect to the question about overage family members, we have answered that. Whether it's a child, depending on the child's age and the situation, a child who's above 22 may still be eligible, depending on that person's situation. Even a child who is less than 22 but is married, Canada will not consider that child to be a dependent child in that sense. So depending on the family member situation, you need to look at this. Generally speaking, a person cannot say he wants to sponsor his brother or his sister, because in the definition of family members, dependent family members, those people do not fit into. So people you can sponsor, your parents, grandparents, and dependent children. But for a person who is here with permanent residence status or Canadian citizen, the benefit a brother, a sibling can take from you is, if the person is doing express entry, for example, the person will get additional points for having that relative in Canada. If the person is doing provincial nomination, whether it's in Ontario, you have a brother who is here, Ontario looks at you and say, okay, well, you're more likely to settle where a family member is. The province of Manitoba, for example, will give you more points in the provincial nomination system to say, yes, you have a brother who is supporting your desire to settle here in Manitoba, will give you an additional, I think it's about 200 points thereabouts. So that's the benefit people can gain from sibling relationship. But in the sense that I have a brother and I say to myself, Brother Falaye, I want to sponsor you here, I'm not aware of such programs at this time.
I think the qualifying word was adult family members, right? Because if Antosin has spoken to that, when it comes to let's say nephews and and nieces who are underage, below the age of 18, as long as you can prove that they are orphans, they have no parents, and you want to sponsor them, that is also allowed. But Tosin has covered the ones for adults, and of course, parents can always be sponsored, and there's also, yeah, that's it really. Right, let's move on.
Let's go on to Galaxy. Who is Galaxy S10 Plus? Galaxy S10 Plus. Can you unmute yourself, please? Galaxy S10 Plus.
Good evening, ma. Hello.
Good evening,
Good evening, ma. Yes, my name is Omolola. My question is somehow close to what our president have just asked. I would like to know if it's possible for me, sir, because I just got accepted last year, and I have my both aged parents back home, and I love to bring them. So I want to know what are the criteria, because I've been trying to make my inquiries regards this, and they said I need to. So many people have been giving me different information about it. Anyways, so I said I have to hold my question until today and ask from you, sir. Is it possible for me to bring them, both of them, and how do I go about it? Please. Thank you, sir.
Okay. I believe you. I'm just going to put the answer out publicly. I think you'd asked this question. I've responded to you directly, but since you're asked here again, I will just say that given your current status, right, it may be possible for you, depending on what your refugee protection claim was about, and again, this is generally, depending on what a person's refugee claim was about, it may be possible for them to invite a family member to visit Canada. For example, a parent, a person has been accepted, can their parents come to Canada? It is open to the officer, on the other hand, to consider, well, this family member A had come to Canada and sought protection for whatever reasons. What are the guarantees that this family member B, a parent who is visiting Canada, who's been invited to Canada as a visitor, would eventually return to Canada at the end of the stay if we allow that parent come? So it makes that officer to make that decision to see, do I have sufficient evidence before me to make the conclusion that if we allow this parent come in as a visitor, the parent will return. So in your case, aged parents, are you able to show that they have sufficient ties to go back home at the end of the time? That outweighs the fact that you as a person sought protection here. Are their lives in danger? Are they likely to come here to seek protection as well? And things like that. Depending on how you're able to satisfy that question, it is open to the officer to make a decision. But can you invite them as visitors to Canada? My thinking is yes. The other thing would be, when you eventually become a permanent resident, it will be possible for you to also take advantage of the parents and grandparents sponsorship pathway to sponsor your parents for permanent residence in Canada. And the way that works in a sense is it looks at your income for the last 3 years preceding when you show interest in inviting your parents or sponsoring your parents for permanent residence. And when the applications open up on a yearly basis, usually sometime between August and September thereabouts, you indicate your interest. Canada does the draws, invites people to sponsor their parents in that sense. That could also be an avenue for you, depending on your income threshold after a period of 2 years thereabout. But in the interim, as visitors, whether it's a super visa or as temporary, the regular temporary residence visa, you can apply as long as you show that they will return at the end of the time. It's up to the officer to grant.
I think the last
Thank you very
statement,
much, sir.
last statement is very important, because kind of Tosin faded a little bit that no, application can always be made, but it's up to the officer to say yes or no. So you want to make sure that it's well put together and you address any issues that may be of concern, to including financial and all those things. All right. Thank you. Next question.
Yeah, next question. From Olowo Layemo. Can the pathway PR order fly directly to his or her country of origin?
All right. There has been some kind of controversy on that, PR pathway, and we have heard the rumor that those who have been approved on PR pathway, basically, there's someone, not those, but someone said someone was coming back from Nigeria and was stopped at the port of entry and was refused entry and was returned back to Nigeria and that kind of thing. Well, lawyers, we are lawyers, we deal with facts, we deal with concrete evidence. So far, nobody had come to us to say that they traveled based on the PR pathway residency and they had been returned back. Am I saying that could not have happened? It's possible to have some overzealous officers to do that. And not only that, it also depends on the background of individuals and some of the information that individuals had given to Canada Immigration. And so, every case will stand or fall on its own facts. So it kind of depends on individual case. But generally speaking, though, we had looked at this in our office, and it is our opinion that there's nothing in the conditions that grants permanent residency based on the PR pathway that says that individual cannot travel. Again, that's a general statement based on what we have read with respect to several that we have done. So far, we do not believe that there's a reason why such an individual cannot travel. Having said that, it depends on the history of individuals and some of the reasons why they may be refused entry. So I think that would be my response to that. Tosin, you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, I totally agree.
Sorry, sir. Before you answer that question, sir, sorry. I think I have the same question that's similar, but I want you to answer the question altogether. This one applied to the permanent resident that will obtain a status through convention refugee. Can they travel as well to their country of origin? And those that become a Canadian citizen through refugee claimants altogether, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so for the one about Canadians, those who become Canadian citizens altogether, I think the person who asked that question had been unmuted previously, and we had responded to that in terms of cessation of your refugee protection. If you travel to Nigeria, we have dealt with that extensively. TR to PR. So just there's a distinction between the TR to PR pathway as well as the healthcare workers working in healthcare workers pathway who are refugee claimants. The TR to PR refugee claimants are not eligible for that. So a person who had valid temporary residence status and applied for PR based on the TR to PR public policy, that person can always go home. There's nothing preventing you from that. But for a person who was a refugee claimant and took advantage of the healthcare workers pathway program, Mr. Babala responded to that. What I was going to add is, my position is for an overzealous officer to take that decision. In the event that it happens, you can always challenge that, like we talked about it. An officer who turns you back at the border as a permanent resident has made an administrative decision. So it is open to you to seek a judicial review of that, challenge that, and test the law, because as far as we know, you weren't granted status as a protected person. You're not protected by Canada, and there isn't that limitation on you. You ultimately withdrew your refugee claim before you became a permanent resident. So there's no reason to treat you differently from a person who became a permanent resident the regular way. So I would say that if that does happen, it's important to challenge it and test the law to see whether or not that will stand the test.
Next question is, I have recently been granted a PR through the TR to PR refugee in healthcare pathways. Can I travel to Nigeria now? Does the rule of law cessation apply to me?
A similar question to what was asked. Again, cessation won't apply to you where you weren't granted protected person status or convention refugee status. Protected vacation or cessation would only happen where you've been protected by Canada and Canada wants to take that back. If for any reason an officer wants to challenge your PR, then that officer has to go the legitimate way, which is to send you possibly for an admissibility hearing, a hearing to take away your PR and prove his case before. So the officer cannot just say by myself, I'm taking your PR away, I send you back. Our position again is, if an officer does that, by all means, you can always challenge that.
Thank you, sir. Next question, Mr. Wale Bogunjoko. Can you unmute yourself, please? Mr. Wale Bogunjoko.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, the question I put across is, if someone entered Canada with a visiting visa, maybe due to one reason or the other, the person could not go back to his country, I decide to stay put in Canada. What does the person have any means of getting a pathway to get a PR? I don't know if you get my question, sir.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Okay. So again, reference to the presentation I had, we talked about folks who fall out of status and the options that you may have. Depending on why you fell out of status and your particular circumstances, you could seek to apply for permanent residence on humanitarian and compassionate ground. Say, for example, there are people who had come into Canada as visitors, overstayed the 6 months, may have worked underground, become established over several years. Those people may have a good case to seek permanent residence on compassionate grounds. You could have several other reasons, depending on the hardship you may face in going back to your country. Depending on the circumstances, it's up to you to bring forward your case to show why you want to get PR for within Canada on compassionate grounds. I also talked about the public policy program that was put in place for out-of-status construction workers. So for example, you came to Canada on a visitor's visa. For some reason, you've got to work with a construction company. You started working, albeit under the table, whatever it is. You still have that job. You've been in Canada for a period of 5 years. You get supported by the Canadian Labour Congress. That provides you a pathway to regularize your status that way. I also talked about you being given an opportunity for a removal risk assessment in the event that an officer decides to enforce removal against you. That could also provide you a pathway as an out-of-status person to regularize your status in Canada. You also may have come to Canada as a visitor. It is expired. You may want to consider the possibility of seeking a visitor's record, provided you are within the restoration period of 90 days and things like that. I also talked about, depending on your circumstances, if you're a person who has a spouse here or a common law partner, you've lived with, and just for common law partnership basically is I have somebody who I'm in a romantic relationship with, we live together in the same residence, we've sort of intertwined our affairs without formally getting married. You can apply for permanent residence as the common law partner of somebody who is a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident. Again, if a person is here, you've overstayed your visa, there's a reason, legitimate reason why your life is in danger in your country. That's what is making you not want to go back to your country. You could always explore the possibility of seeking protection in Canada. And then finally, restoration of your status on compassionate grounds as well, or within the 90 days that I talked about. So in that general sense, those are the options you have, having come to Canada as a visitor and you want to transition. I also made reference earlier, unfortunately, that program is over right now. During the pandemic, folks who were in Canada with valid visitor status were given that opportunity to transition, to get work permits, provided they either have an LMI or they were recruited in an LMI exempt position. That may also provide a person a pathway depending on whether or not the policy is active at a particular point in time for you to regularize your status or transition your status from visitor to something else in Canada.
So thank you, Tosin. Just to speak to add to that briefly, the general rule is that for anyone that wants to come to Canada to live permanently, you have to apply for and obtain your permanent residency status from outside of Canada. That's the general rule. So many of these things that Tosin had listed are exceptions to that. But again, people have to understand that none of these things is guaranteed. If you're applying for, if your life is in your country and you're applying for a refugee as a refugee, or you are applying for protection based on the fact that your life or your liberty is at risk in your country, nothing is guaranteed. If you apply for HNC, based on the hardship you will face in your country and some other grounds, nothing is guaranteed. It's extremely important for people to make sure they apply for permanent residencies from outside so that they can walk in freely and have some peace of mind. It's very important. All right.
Thank you. Is Alhaji Rasak Olayiwola, I saw your hand up earlier on. Do you want to say something? Miss Alhaji Rasak Olayiwola, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, ma. Thank you very much, ma. Yeah. My question goes to our lawyers. Well, this is the question is normally I have about 3 people online. 2 of them is from Ibadan, 1 is from Lagos. So I think there are no more on the line right now. So the question is this, but before I ask the question, okay, there is somebody called Agent in Toronto that agent, I will not mention the name, they have already collected about $5,000 from them, which they are asking me to go over the agent. I say, no, I live in Montreal. I cannot go through over agent. You guys know I'm here in Canada, okay? Before you contact your agent without letting me know, and then you want me to go to Toronto, I'm going to be fighting the agent. I cannot do that, okay? But my question is this to our lawyers. Is our lawyer give us the power of Anthony? Anybody through the OPU Canada wants any information or you want anything, okay, we can connect them to you as our lawyers in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me go to the next question. Thank you so much for that beautiful, what am I going to call it? Thank you. Next question is
Madam Moderator, please. The time is fast spending. Look at the questions. There are so many of them that are
there are so many.
Similar.
That's what there are so many.
Please put them, all the similar ones, put them together.
Yeah, that's
so that
what
we
I
can
want
run,
to do.
We can run
yeah,
down.
there are so many. Yeah. Okay, let me go to the next question. The next question is at what? Oh no, I want to put this one together. You said, please, what can you say about Yukon Community Program? Is it workable relocation plan to Canada? That is one. Another one that I can say I want to say. Can you answer that one, please?
The Yukon Community Program, just like provincial nomination we've been talking about before, is a program that is under the Yukon nomination program. So yeah, as long as a person gets that employment that this program requires, you have the community eventually support you for nomination in Canada. Yes, it provides that pathway for you to apply for permanent residence ultimately. It's a program that's done by the community there. So one just needs to look at the requirements, how you fit into that. I know that there's job requirements that there's a requirement for you to have a job and things like that. So programs that are done officially by communities in Canada under valid programs would always be a viable opportunity. It depends on how you fit into it for that to be viable in your situation.
Hello?
I think she's trying to put.
Oh, she's trying to put
Yes.
the question.
When someone invited or sponsor a person, like brother, friend, or parent to Canada, and eventually such person goes ahead to make refugee claim, what is the implication on the sponsor? Like, can he, what is it? It's a lot.
I mean, basically, I think what that person is trying to say is that how will they affect the person that has sponsored?
The person, yeah, that sponsored the person, yeah. That if the person claim refugee when the person enter Canada.
That had invited that person, right, to Canada. Yes, you know, it's always a difficult question to ask because it may affect the person who had invited, and it may not, quite frankly. And the reason why it may affect that person is trust. It comes down to trust. So even in future, that individual invites someone else, responsible officers at the visa post might look at the profile of the person invited and say, okay, this guy had invited ABCD, and ABCD did not return back to his or her country. So I don't trust that this new person that is being invited will return to his or her country. So it's a question of trust at that point. And so that officer might say no. And some officers might not really care about that, quite frankly. But other than that, it's not that it has any direct implication on that person, either his or her legal status in Canada or any other thing. The only area where the individual may have to be careful is if there's a pattern there's a pattern of that individual inviting people to come to Canada and then they claim refugee claim. I mean, they make refugee claim. Then the searchlight might be beamed. Searchlight might be beamed on that individual, whether he or she has become a trafficker, so to say. So individuals must be careful in that sense. All right. I can't hear you.
As in Nigeria, still in the university or graduate, is there any way we can get to apply for scholarship to gain access and entry into Canada to study courses like ICT, linguistic, and etc., part-time or full-time course? How can we go about it?
It's very simple. Individuals should just go online, look for the school that they want to attend. But they have to make sure that the schools are designated schools, not just any school, because if you just attend any school, you might not, I mean, if you just apply to any school, you might not be able to get a visa if they are not designated. So the list of designated schools are on the government website. If they go to canada.ca, the immigration section, they will see all this information there. So, make sure the school is designated, then apply to come here and study, and that's about it. I generally advise people to look for a 2-year program. Actually, if you're coming in for either a first degree or a diploma or postgrad diploma, if it's like a 2-year program, then once you finish, you'll be able to get about 3-year postgrad work permits that will allow you to work for a year and be able to apply for permanent residency. So yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. You can just go online and apply and look for school and apply.
Okay, next one is for someone who visited Canada with a visiting visa, and for one reason or the other, she stayed put in Canada. I don't know. What option do the person have to get PR?
Then we answered that question, right? We went through that. Somebody who has a visitor who needs to go through, and Tosin went through all kind of options, H&C, and work permit, PRA, refugee, if they have reasons to believe that their lives are in danger in their country. So yeah, I'm sure that individual will have obtained will have understood the answer to that question based on what we said before. Yep. Next question.
For this question, for any suggested lawyer, just contact Top Market. They're going to give you the phone number, their office phone number. Just wait. At the end of this presentation, you will get their contact number. That is for this question that said that they need the lawyers who can help with my situation. Just contact them. They're going to attend to you. Next question. That's all.
Some hands are up.
You again, you can go ahead. That's all for those people. Okay. Can you go ahead, sir?
Okay. I just want to find out, I've had that the corporate organization, churches, they go ahead to foreign countries to sponsor refugees, who are in need for one thing or the other. Can OPU, as a corporate entity, sponsor people from Nigeria? For instance, people in IDP who are suffering for one thing or the other. Can OPU, as a corporate entity, sponsor such people? Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was my question. One overlook any man. That was my question.
Okay, Mr. Olawiwola, we apologize to you for that. It wasn't intended to overlook your question. I think what Mr. Olawiwola said earlier was whether or not Top Market was going to give a power of attorney and things like that. I'll defer to Mr. Babla on that. Mr. Babla will respond to that issue. But with respect to corporate organizations like OPUC Canada, sponsoring people from outside of Canada, people in IDP camps and things like that, it is possible that there are refugee protection programs that can be applied for from outside of Canada. And I gave example when I was presenting to the Afghan situation. The pathway folks from Afghanistan are being resettled in Canada is that outside of Canada, refugee sponsorship type or resettlement thing program. It can either be done through the UNHCR, UNHRC, United Nations Human Rights Commission. There are certain organizations that have been recognized. I think they're called SPAH, but basically those organizations are recognized by the government of Canada as organizations that support resettlement of refugees in Canada. There's also something called the Group of Five. The Group of Five basically is where a group of 5 people, Canadian residents or Canadian permanent residents or Canadian citizens, decide to come together to say they've identified certain people outside of Canada who need protection, and they are willing to support those people to resettle here in Canada. In that situation, those people from outside of Canada have to be designated either by the country where they live as people in need of refugee protection, or by the UNHCR as persons in need of protection. So it's not just enough for the corporate organization to identify whether it's a family member or stuff. That designation also, part of the process is for that foreign government, say for example, a Nigerian who finds himself in Libya, if the government of Libya has recognized that person as a protected person, a Group of 5 or the SPAH, which basically is organizations that have been recognized as people who do that out of Canada refugee resettlement to support them to get settled here. And there are several organizations like that. If you go on the Government of Canada website to see out of Canada refugee resettlement, you likely will run across that information. Whether or not the OPUC can position itself to do that, it will have to go through the requirements by immigration to be recognized as that kind of organization, or in the interim, do the Group of 5 type thing, but also bear in mind that 2 types of people. First of all, you can identify the refugees yourself, but they will need to be recognized by the UNHCR or the country where they live, or you can decide to pick people who the UNHCR has already identified as refugees. So there's a strong likelihood that folks who are already in IDP camps, say in Nigeria, may have been designated by UNHCR as people in need of refugee protection within the context of Nigeria. If the OPUC gets to get that designation as an SPAH, then you may be able to sponsor that or do that on the basis of a Group of 5.
Thank you, Mr. Falai. We won't be able to take any more questions again after Mr. Olakunle. Mr. Olakunle Oluwa, I don't know the name. Can you go ahead? Last question, please. Olakunle Oluwa Pelumi, can you go ahead? Unmute yourself. That's the last question for today. Mr. Olakunle Oluwa Pelumi.
I'm here. I'm with you, ma. Good evening, ma. I'm Olakunle Oluwapelumi. Olakunle Oluwapelumi from Ibadan, Nigeria. One of my uncle introduced me to this platform this afternoon, so he sent the message to me that I should try to join it and ask my question. I'm willing to migrate to Canada in the respect of using asylum. Because there's something that happened in Ibadan recently around July 1st, and I'm among this the people that they were picked for TSS people to Abuja. So I'm like, can I use that to move to Canada as an asylum? That's just my question.
Thank you for your question. We do not advise on asylum seeking, and like Tosin and I said at the beginning of this, we speak generally to issues, but we do not provide private consultation on a platform like this. So it's always better to seek for advice from a counsel, and so you can speak about your situation and then they can advise you properly. All right, thank you.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Olakunle, that is it. Just call on 416-733-8585. They will give you more information regarding your question, okay? So now, that's a very good one. On behalf of OPU Canada chapter, I want to say thank you to our speakers. for their insightful and excellent presentation. Worthy point gain. The presentation was really informative. Adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ yín. Adúpẹ́ lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ lọ́wọ́ yín. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Thanks for coming. And to my wonderful people out there, thank you so much. I believe today's presentation will enable us to take care of our immigration matters and to ensure that the most successful outcomes occur. So please, if you want to know more information regarding what we discussed today, or any immigration consultancy or any immigration matters, please contact Tom McKay Anthony on 416-733-8585. They are there to attend to your needs. Just contact them. I've been with them for so long. And I know what I gain from them. So just contact them. You won't regret of doing this. Thank you so much. So I'm going to call on our deputy coordinator, Mrs. Anike Ashaka, to please give all the vote of thanks.
Thank you, madam. Just before you call, I want to thank you too. I want to thank, the organization for the opportunity. Like I said at the beginning, we do not take this for granted. We're always in the community for our own people. It's very important for us to be there and everything is not money. So anytime we are available to speak to any of these legal matters. We're not just immigration lawyers, we do litigation, we do other areas of law as well. But just to say quickly, there was a question that was asked and maybe we never really responded to it about power of attorney. It's not about power of attorney. It's about individuals that have any legal needs. They can always contact us. So this seems to me like a litigation matter. Somebody took money, they did not deliver on the promise. So that's litigation now. That's not even immigration matter. So that's something that we can always explore, and those individuals can reach out to us, and then we'll see if there's anything we can do to assist. So thank you again, and merci beaucoup, as they say in Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson Babalola. Thank you so much, sir. Mrs. Anike Ashaka, are you there, ma? Our deputy coordinator, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Can you go ahead to give us vote of thanks?
All right, thank you so much. I would like to appreciate the OPU Canada chapter for this amazing webinar. Our coordinators, all the ESCOs, BOD, and members for program championship. Thank you so much. But most especially to the barrister, Mr. Babalola Johnson, Mr. Tosin Falaye, thank you for in-depth, detailed, and informative sessions. I believe that everyone today, they will be going home with a lot of information, including myself.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and all you do. And this time that you are giving us free of charge to our community, we thank you. We thank you for all the work that you are doing. And also to all our participants, many thanks to you. I hope that your knowledge about the immigration have improved, after this webinar. And this is one of the benefits we are offering to our community as OPU Canada. So if you want to become one of us and contribute to the community, you are all welcome. So I also thank you for joining us all over the world. God bless you. Thank you so much. You are all welcome.
Thank you, my amiable deputy coordinator, for the world beautiful vote of thanks. Thank you so much. To my wonderful people, you have heard it all. So, Eshe Adupe, thanks for coming from Ibadan, Nigeria, Malaysia, England, United US. Oh my God, a lot of people from different countries. This is so great. So now, is our coordinator want to chip in something before I call on Baba Odua to give us the closing prayer?